Hi students, so today we are going to learn about tribal decus and the vision of a golden age, that is chapter 4th of the class 8th history textbook. Now before moving on to this chapter, let's see what are tribals, decus and what do we mean here by the vision of a golden age. So tribals, as we all know, are the people who had different culture, different traditions than the normal people who used to live in India then and now as well. These people did not have the same practices that we used to have in that time as well as this time. They had different means of livelihood. Their lifestyle was different. Their tradition was different. They were not very eager to follow the religions which we follow. They had their own religions and everything. Dikus, whom they call Dikus. Now, these Dikus, the name is given by the tribal themselves. We learn in this chapter that why and who are these Dikus and the vision of a golden age. Now, here, this is a point to something that is considered by them as a golden age. We'll also see that what, according to them, was the golden age or would be the golden age. Let's see what's in this chapter. Birsa Munda's rising popularity. Now, starting a chapter with one of the greatest tribal that the history has seen, one of the tribals who led the movement, who mobilized the tribal people into a movement, into a particular solidarity movement against the Britishers. He was Birsa Munda, and why his popularity was rising. Let's see about that. In 1895, Birsa, a Munda from Chota Nagpur, declared that God has appointed him to free his people from slavery of Dikus. Now, Birsa, his name was Birsa, and he was of the Munda tribe. Here, his second name is coming from a tribe that belongs to the Chota Nagpur plateau, that is in today's day, Jharkhand. That time it was in the province of Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha. It was the same province. So they declared that God, the people of the Munda tribe, they declared Birsa as their god, and that he could grow crops and he could do a lot of things which normal people wouldn't. But we have to remember that people during that time, anyone who would stand amongst them and who would lead them against this British exploitation, they could regard them as god. Like we have seen in the case of Mahatma Gandhi also, how the people during that time, they used to regard Mahatma Gandhi as their god, their messiah. Now these people of the Munda tribe, they were so attached with whatever Birsa was doing during that time that they believed that he was a god. Birsa himself, he made a he made an image about himself that he was appointed to free his people from the slavery of the Dikus. Now, what are Dikus? Dikus, according to the Munda tribe, was any outsider. Now, these outsiders could be anyone. They could be money lenders, they could be talukdars, they could be zamindars, and most importantly, they were Britishers. So, Britishers, along with all those people who were supposed to come and extract money from the people, who were supposed to exploit the people or mean to change their ways, mean to shift their ways of living, those were called Dikus by these tribal people. Here are the groups of, here is the picture of Birsa Munda, and here is a group of tribal people who belong to Munda community. Let's see, we'll see in the chapter further that why Birsa Munda's popularity was rising and what consequences did it have on the people, the general people and the Britishers during that time. Now, how did the tribal groups live? Till now, we have seen that how the peasants and artisans used to live, how the cultivators used to live, how the British people used to treat them. But what about the tribals? Were they facing the same thing that the other people were facing? Were they living the same life that the other people were living? No. So basically, they were not living the life of the other people. Neither they were getting exploited by the British in the same way that the other people were getting exploited. Of course, that doesn't mean that whatever oppression they faced, it was not a way of exploitation. That was also an exploitation. Now, how did the tribal groups live? Because they did not come out to live in a social environment like other people used to live. How these people used to live had different implications on all the people and them also. So they were not very keen on living with the other people like they used to live. They were not keen on settling down. They were not keen on having a society with different houses and different kind of people and caste hierarchy like what the other system followed during that time. Of course, they were not distinguished on the caste boundaries as strictly as that time we saw in the case of Hinduism and in the case of Muslim also, Shia and Sunni. These were not so distinguished on the basis of caste, but that doesn't mean that they were not distinguished at all. There was some economic or social distinguish in them as well. So how did they actually used to live? They some of the tribes they used to live, they used to practice jhoom, which is called jhoom and which is also called shifting cultivation. This is jhoom, which is also known as shifting cultivation in hilly and forested areas. Now, what is jhoom exactly? So, jhoom farming, as popularly known as the jhoom farming, it happened like this. Like people in this area, the tribes of this area, they used to go to a forest area. Then they used to cut the treetops. That is the pointy end of the tree. These forest area they usually have very pointed trees. So they used to cut those tree tops, and because of the sunlight they wanted the sunlight to reach the ground, and then they used to cut some of the production of the forest, a particular forest area which they chose to have, and then from that forest area they used to scatter the ashes which contain potash, a rich amount of potash, which was very useful for their cultivation, and then they used to just throw seeds. They do not used to plow. They were not used to plowing, and they were not used to all the mechanized form of farming. They just used to throw the seeds, and then the seeds used to grow. They used to cut the crops. They used to feed on that. After that, they used to clear the whole forest area. They used to burn that down, and then they used to shift to some other forest area and do the same thing. So that is why it is called shifting cultivation, because the cultivation did not happen at one place only. Rather, it shifted from place to place. After one piece of land, they have used the one piece of land. It used to get burned, totally burned. They used to clear the forest area as a whole. They used to burn it so that after some time, that area of forest could regain its fertility after some time. That is why they used to have that. That is also, if I'm not wrong, this kind of farming is also called slash and burn farming. This is still practiced in some of the northeast states like Arunachal Pradesh and Assam. This kind of shifting cultivation is still practiced in those areas. Now, the other tribes which were there was Khons and Baigas. These were the tribes which were not the cultivators, the shifting cultivators, but rather they lived their life as hunter-gatherers. Now, what they used to do were, they used to go to, they particularly believed that they were supposed to, be connected with the forest. So some of these people, they used to go to the forest, they used to kill an animal, and then they used to bring that animal back, feed themselves. All of the people, the meat was supposed to be distributed amongst the clan and the tribe. After distributing the meat amongst the tribal people, among the tribe, they used to feed upon that meat, and they also used to go to the forest for their other products, like from the sal tree they used to extract oil, and then they used to use that oil for their daily needs. Then they use this mahua. Mahua is a tree which has a very flowering scent fruits. So from these mahua they used to do a lot of things. So basically they were basing their lives upon the forest products. They believed that their lives were connected and dependent on the forest as their main source of livelihood. So they fed upon meat and they used other forest products, and whenever they had anything that they wanted, in fact all the tribals, whenever they had to procure anything which could not be procured by the forest, then they used to do odd jobs, like they used to go and work as laborers, or they used to go work in some field or anywhere where they could get money for buying those stuff. Let's move on. The other kinds of tribal groups which practiced living was pastoralist. Like the Gujars and Gaddis, they herded cattle. So their way of herding cattle was they used a grassland, and they used to have their cattle there. And after the grassland it was emptied, like there was no more grass, then they also used to shift to certain other land which had grass. So that they also kind of believed in shifting. They did not stay at one place, rather, they shifted from place to place in order to do the herding, in order to have this thing. They were pastoralists also, so they reared animals for various products like cows for milk and meat products and other very variety of products they used to rear from the animals itself. Some other tribes that were there were Mundas, Gonds, Santhals that became settled cultivators. Now, all these tribes, none of them were settled cultivators. They used to move from place to place, like like we saw about the shifting cultivators. They also moved from place to place because of the forest areas. One forest area they used to burn, and then they used to shift to other place. The other hunter gatherers, they also used to shift from place to place for hunting and for doing other purposes. Then the pastoralists also, when they used to herd the cattle, one area used to be emptied of the grass, then they used to shift to another area. But these tribes, the tribes of the Chotanagpur Plateau, that were Mundas, Gonds, and Santals, they chose to become settled. So they started practicing cultivation, such as rice cultivation, and they started practicing various kinds of cultivation. And rather, they chose to be settled and do some kind of farming or some kind of exercise to have their livelihood sustained. So these were the first kinds of tribals who chose to have a settlement, who chose to become settled. We'll also see that what happened to these tribes in this period. Like, are the tribal groups still existing? Are the tribals have the same right as they had in the pre-British era or the British era? What kind of life are the tribals still living? Let's move on. This is a picture where a tribal person is seen practicing the shifting cultivation, slash and burn, also called as jhuming. You can see the forest area has been burnt. This area is being cleared, and the soil used to regain its fertility after some time. Because you are not consistently using the same soil, no? So the soil did not lose its fertility. Rather, it was a regaining process of the soil, regaining its nutrition, its fertility, and they used to shift on the other farming. The major tribes of India. Now here we can see, some of the tribes that were there in India during that time. That is Santal, Munda, Oraon. Here is the Chotanagpur Plateau, and these tribes used to live here. These are Van Gujars and Rathawa. These used to be the pastoralists and the herders. Then here we can see Baigas, Marias, and Gonds. We just read about them. They were hunter-gatherers. And here we can see Gaddis and Van Gujars. These were the herders. All these tribes had their own tradition, their own culture. None of the tribes, it was not supposed to be common. Just because they belonged to the tribal community did not mean that they had the same culture, they had the same tradition. They had different culture, they had different beliefs. They believed that living according to their lifestyle was something that they have gained in heritage from their kinship. So basically, how it worked in the tribal societies was they thought that they belonged to the same kinship. That is why they are in a particular tribe. So basically, if I am a Gond, then I would believe that I belong to the Gond tribe because we share the same kinship. That is how they used to live. We have seen that we have just learned about these 4 kinds of tribe and how they used to live. Santal, Munda, and Oraon, they became the settled cultivators. Then these were the hunter-gatherers. Here we have very dense forest area, so we can just combine these geographical and topographical nature of the lands, and then we can combine the practicing of the people that were there, practicing of the tribes that were associated with these kinds of farming. Then we have herders and grasslands, the people who were herders, the pastoralists. So we can associate them with the topographical feature of the land also. The Baiga tribe of the central India. The Baigas refused to work for wages as they saw themselves as people of the forest. As I said earlier, they connected with the forest. They thought that their livelihood was dependent on the forest and they should be connected at all times. They used to procure all their materials from the forest, and then they refused to become laborers for wages, because they thought that there was no need to have any other products that cannot be procured from the forest itself. Men hunt while women gather roots, kanda or mahua seeds. So men, they used to go on more that kind of jobs which were supposed to be dangerous, which was supposed to be at that time also. So I'm not trying to go sexist, but that time also men were given a tough role. So basically, hunting and gathering needed a group of men who used to go from forest to forest searching for animals and then killing them, and the meat was distributed in all the people of the tribe. Whereas female, they used to collect the roots and the kand and mool means fruits and seeds, and the mahua seeds which they used for various purposes. So all these people, they had their jobs divided amongst them. They used to do certain kinds of things. We can trace the line from the same level of hunter gatherers as those were found in the Harappan society. That those kinds of hunter gatherers were also the same. They also used to hunt animals, and the female, they used to stay behind. Although at that time, some of the pictures have also shown that female also went to hunting and gathering. So the Baiga tribe also, it was a very that kind of tribe which did not believe that they have to work for the wages as laborers. They were very sure that forest was the only thing that they needed. Let's come to the question. Look carefully at the task that Baiga men and women did. Do you see any pattern? What were the differences in the types of work that were expected to perform? Yes, there's a pattern. Of course, we saw men going for hunting. Those were considered as more dangerous forms of work. And those needed a group of men who were supposed to go to a long distance and kill certain kind of wild animal also. There could be wild animal also. So there was a lot of danger. Whereas women, they were supposed to stay behind and collect the seeds and all kinds of roots from forest, which could be used for eating and for other purposes, for medicinal purposes. So they had less dangerous jobs. So there is the pattern. Male and female had their jobs divided in this tribe. Differences in the type of work that they were expected to perform. So the female, at one place, they were supposed to perform a more sophisticated kind from their level of job. So there they could stay behind and look after the children. Maybe that could be another hypothesis, because they had many other things to do also. And men, they used to come with the animal they had killed, and that meat was to be distributed throughout the tribe members. So that is the pattern of the male and female work distributed among the Baiga tribe.